Level 1 of royalty sounds fancy, right? But trust me, it's basically the kiddie pool of the crown world. So picture this. You're born to a minor noble family with a dusty coat of arms that no one outside your tiny village cares about. You've got a little bit of land, maybe a creaky castle that smells like damp bread, and a couple of servants who are just as broke as you are. Congratulations, you're technically royal, but only in the way a dollar store crown is technically gold. This is where the royal ladder starts the lowest rung, where your power is mostly for show, and your job is to look important. While the real monarchs play chess with your life, your title might be something like Baron or Viscount, which sounds cool until you realize it mostly means endless paperwork and hosting awkward feasts for people who secretly hope you trip into the moat. Sure, you've got some privileges. You don't pay the same taxes as the peasants, and you can wear fancier hats, but you also spend half your time begging richer lords for favors, and the other half making sure your cousins don't marry each other again. Think of level 1 as royal probation. You can attend royal courts, but you're basically the background character who gets cut from the final episode, unless you pull some sneaky moves, marry rich, win a war, or discover a new trade route. You're stuck sipping watered-down wine, while the real power players carve up the kingdom. And don't forget the drama, because every distant relative is either plotting to outshine you or hoping you die of a suspicious cold. And while you might dream of climbing higher, every step up means more danger, more politics, and more people ready to stab you in the back. But hey, at least you've got a title that looks good on a wax seal and a family crest that impresses exactly no one. So welcome to level 1, the polite purgatory of royalty, where you're technically noble, technically important, and technically one bad harvest away from total irrelevance. Level 2 of royalty is where things start to feel a little more serious, but still just dangerous enough to keep you looking over your shoulder every second. So imagine you've clawed your way up from the bargain baron life, and now you've got a title that actually makes peasants bow, and maybe even makes other nobles twitch a little. We're talking counts and countesses, dukes and duchesses, marquesses. If you're into fancy spelling, you're no longer the sad background character. You're now on the VIP list for every major feast, wedding, and political mess, and you probably have an estate that doesn't smell like wet hay anymore. The money is better, the food is richer, and people actually listen when you talk, but don't get too comfortable because now you're in the danger zone. Your influence is real enough that kings and queens notice you, which means you are both useful and expendable at the same time. Your main job is to manage serious amounts of land, collect taxes, squeeze every coin you can from your tenants, and show up at court looking like you've got everything under control. But in reality, you're juggling endless alliances while praying your rivals don't poison your wine. One bad move and you're either broke or accidentally hunted during a royal game trip. It's like running a medieval startup, except your investors have swords and no-chill marriages. At this level are practically business deals. Your kids are chess pieces to secure more land or buy peace with neighbors. Every dinner conversation is basically a spy thriller, because someone is always leaking gossip about who's secretly plotting a rebellion. Still, there's a thrill to it. You can command soldiers, you can veto smaller nobles, and you can even argue with the crown if you're brave or stupid enough. Level 2 is the sweet spot where you taste real power but haven't yet hit the crushing boredom and world-ending responsibility of wearing the big shiny crown. Level 3 of royalty is where the air gets thinner and the stakes start to taste like iron, because now you're playing in the league of true power brokers. You're no longer just the well-dressed duke with a big dining hall. You're a prince or princess, the kind of person who makes whole armies pause just to gossip about your latest scandal. At this stage, you're basically the understudy for the throne, the living backup plan for when the king or queen inevitably gets sick, poisoned, or accidentally falls off a balcony. Everyone knows your name, everyone wants a piece of you, and every cousin you ever ignored at family feasts suddenly wants to be your best friend. It sounds glamorous and sure your wardrobe could bankrupt a small country, but the pressure is brutal because the second you're born into level 3, your entire life is a political chess game. Every friendship is a potential alliance, every romance is a calculated risk, and every public smile is another mask you wear. While wondering which courtier is plotting to ruin your next banquet, you're rich beyond reason, you command respect from dukes and counts, and your private parties are the stuff of legend, but you can't sneeze without it becoming a national headline. And the worst part is, you don't actually rule anything. Not yet. You're a heartbeat away from the crown, but also one bad rumor away from permanent exile. People will flatter you endlessly while quietly planning how to replace you with a cousin who looks better in portraits. And while you might get the thrill of commanding armies or negotiating treaties, the real job is staying alive in a world where every toast might be laced with something extra. Level 3 is the royal waiting room, where ambition meets paranoia, where your signature can start wars and your silence can topple alliances. It's powerful, it's intoxicating, and it's a never-ending game of survival played under chandeliers worth more than most kingdoms. Level 4 of royalty is where the crown finally lands on your head, and it feels a lot heavier than those shiny portraits ever hinted. Because congratulations, you're now the ruling monarch, king, queen, emperor, whatever your culture calls it. You're not just playing the game anymore. You are the game. You've got the throne, the armies, the treasury, and a palace, so big you can get lost in your own hallway. But along with the gold and silk comes a mountain of problems that make level 3 look like a weekend hobby. Your signature decides wars. Your moods can wreck entire economies, and every smile you flash at a foreign ambassador might decide the fate of thousands of people. Treat you like a living god. But secretly, half of them are plotting to replace you. The second you slip up, every meal tastes like a gamble. Every friend might be a spy, and every relative might be sharpening a dagger in the next room. Sure, you've got absurd power. You can command fleets, raise taxes, throw parties that last a week, and rewrite laws before breakfast, but you also wake up knowing a bad harvest or a sneaky assassin could erase your dynasty overnight. Ruling isn't glamorous, it's relentless. You're balancing nobles who hate each other, bishops who think they run the place, and a population that loves you until the next tax bill hits. And let's not forget the endless ceremonies where you smile until your jaw locks while courtiers whisper about your every move. Level 4 is the ultimate mix of absolute control and absolute paranoia, where you can shape history with a single order. But you can't trust anyone, not even the mirror. And while the crown shines in the candlelight, you can feel its weight pressing down, a reminder that at this height the fall is instant and fatal. Level 5 of royalty is where the crown stops being just a fancy headpiece and turns into a global brand, because now you're not just ruling a kingdom, you're shaping empires, influencing continents, and basically treating the entire map like a personal chessboard. Think powerful emperors, grand czars, supreme sultans, and the kind of monarchs whose signatures can redraw borders overnight. This is the level where your name alone can spark fear across oceans, and where smaller kings bow so low they risk face-planting. You control multiple cultures and economies at once, and your court is a swirling circus of ambassadors, merchants, mercenaries, and distant cousins, all fighting for a scrap of your attention. It sounds incredible, and yes, the luxury is ridiculous. Palaces in every climate, wardrobes that could bankrupt a modern nation, and treasures pouring in from every direction. But with that reach comes the kind of pressure that would make a level 4 king cry into his velvet pillows, because now every decision ripples across continents. One tax change can tank global trade. One insult can light 100 wars, and one weak moment can invite invasions from people who have been waiting generations to knock you off your jeweled throne. Your daily routine is part strategy game, part survival horror. You're negotiating with rival superpowers, keeping distant provinces from revolting and dodging assassination attempts that are more creative than a late-night infomercial. Every alliance is a balancing act, where betrayal is guaranteed and every heir you produce is either your greatest asset or your future nightmare. The crazy part is you barely sleep, because even your dreams are political currency. You can't disappear for a week without some ambitious governor declaring independence. Yet you can't be everywhere at once, so paranoia becomes your closest friend at level 5. You're living proof that absolute power is a full-time job with no off switch. It's intoxicating, dangerous, and one wrong move means your vast empire crumbles faster than a stale biscuit. Level 6 of royalty is where power stops looking human and starts feeling like something out of a myth, because by now you're not just a ruler of lands or an emperor of empires. You're the kind of sovereign people whisper about in taverns, like a living storm. You are the dynasty, the religion, the law, and the legend, all rolled into one. Think of the absolute monarchs whose names rewrote calendars, or the god kings who had entire civilizations bowing before they were even born. At this level, borders are meaningless. Your authority reaches so far that smaller nations fight just to be your shadow. Your word isn't just law, it's prophecy. When you speak, currencies shift. When you breathe, generals panic. And when you frown, entire markets collapse. But here's the nightmare behind the crown. The bigger the reach, the smaller the trust. Everyone around you, from your closest advisors to the servants carrying your morning tea, is a potential traitor, because the stakes are cosmic and the rewards for betrayal are kingdoms of their own. You might control armies that could blanket the horizon and treasuries stacked higher than mountains, but you can't stop time or ambition or the slow creep of unrest across lands so vast you'll never see them all. Your daily life is a relentless game of information and intimidation, where silence can be deadlier than any army, and even your most loyal heirs are calculating how to inherit without waiting for your final breath. Luxury is pointless, because no feast tastes sweet. When you know a dozen rival factions are poisoning every toast, your palace is a golden cage and the weight of history sits on your shoulders like a beast you can't shake. Level 6 is the moment where royalty stops being about wealth or even politics and becomes a test of pure will. Can you hold the world together while everyone, including destiny itself, tries to pull it apart? Level 7 of royalty is the final boss of power, the point where the crown isn't just a symbol of rule, but a full-on force of nature. where your name isn't written in history books. It is history. You're not a monarch or an emperor anymore. You're the living embodiment of an era, the kind of figure that turns into myth while still breathing. Imagine a ruler so untouchable that borders don't even matter because the entire known world bends to their will. You command oceans and continents, armies and economies. You're the heartbeat of a civilization, and if you disappear, everything from trade to religion starts to collapse at level 7. The idea of normal politics is laughable because you're beyond it. Your existence alone shapes culture, language, and even the calendar. People worship you, they fear you, they write their lives around your moods, and yet the higher the throne, the darker the shadow, because when your power is this absolute, there is no such thing as trust. Every advisor, every heir, every supposed friend is a potential spark that could ignite the end of your empire. You live in palaces that stretch like cities, but every echo in those marble halls reminds you that all it takes is one rebellion, one plague, or one brilliant enemy to undo a lifetime of control. You can dictate laws across oceans, but you can't control time, and you can't silence the inevitable rumors that you're mortal just like everyone else. The strange thing about level 7 is that it's both infinite and fragile. You can move millions with a single word, yet you're trapped by your own legend. You can never walk among your people without disguises. You can never relax without layers of guards, and you can never escape the weight of being the sun around which the entire world orbits. This is power so total it starts to feel like a prison, a place where the only opponent left is the slow, relentless march of history itself.